It's time for a Humans in Tune conversation with Darren on 93.9 Mike FM.
Yes, indeed. It is time for a Humans in Tune conversation. And today I'm very pleased to have Brooke Young with me in the studio via Zoom. We are going to be chatting about all kinds of things. Brooke is an amazing human, and I'm glad you're able to join me for another Humans in Tune here on 93.9 Mike FM on Facebook.
Well, thank you for having me. And Darren and I know each other fairly well, so we are excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, that's what I love. This is like the culmination of, so many conversations that you've set me up with, including including Seth and Dr. Julian, all these people that we've talked to, over the last year, a little more than a year. A lot of those conversations have been because of Brooke facilitating awesome people for me to have conversations with. And so publicly, thank you very much for sending me.
You are so welcome. When I send somebody your way, I actually say, look, he's super funny. He's super sweet. He will make you laugh. And that has always been kind of what I preface it with. And they're like, oh, I want to laugh. I'm like, no, you really will.
Yeah. Like, I'll try to laugh. No, I promise. And that's my goal with this is just to, have a good casual conversation, but at the same time, feel comfortable. We're happy. We're laughing, but we're also talking good stuff here and, good human things and missions to accomplish and all these goals that these good people have. And we're trying to get it done and hopefully bring some people along for the ride along the way, and,
absolutely.
And so we're here today. We got Facebook Live. And if you guys are tuned in, you can always comment in the comments section on the Facebook Live. I'm keeping an eye on the comments should you want to join the convo, but feel free to just lurk anonymously in the corner. That's absolutely acceptable. Brooke, your life, like your story started so young and you're still cranking away, but you've accomplished so much in your young life. We were talking before we went on air. Both of us are pretty comfortable with public speaking, and a lot of people aren't. And like in my last job, we had people that they knew they could default to Darren if there was a public speaking thing coming up, and they trusted him enough not to do that weird way that he does. But, so it really never been a big deal for either of us. It kind of came, I was kind of scared of it until I got into singing for a band. And once I was forced to be on a stage in front of people, I got comfortable with it pretty quick and then just kind of went from there. But yours started way earlier than mine did. You were performing as a kid, right?
Yes. And so did you just say that you sang?
Yeah.
I did not know that about you. Look at you.
A caveat, the band's name was Tone Deaf All-Stars. So nobody's saying I'm out here Marvin Gaye in it, but I gave it my best shot. Yeah. But,
I love anybody that's giving it their best shot. So for me, I love that you brought up singing. For me, singing was the way that I started to get over some of the anxiety that you feel, because it is the human reaction. Right. When you step out on stage and you see those eyes looking at you, it can feel almost predatory, right? Mm-hmm. And I hate to break it down to that level, but it is predatory when we feel eyes on us and we're like, what are they thinking about us? Are they thinking terrible things about us? So
it's a deliver or die mentality. That's what your choice is.
Deliver or die. Yeah. Yes. And when you're singing, you can get so focused on your craft and so focused on your art that you start to distance yourself from that deliver or die mentality. And that's where I started to really build the fundamentals. If I wouldn't have sang first, though, I would have a terrible time speaking. So I do accredit the singing with the foundation. If we think of a pyramid, that laid my nice bottom of my pyramid.
Yeah, and it's a good foundation to have. Yeah, because when I was in 7th grade or so, I was that kid that was pretending to be sick so I didn't have to go to the school dance kind of social anxiety. So that was a big overcome. That's a great way to do it. And that got your foundation built.
Yeah, most people are surprised to learn I'm actually pretty introverted. And just like everyone else, I can get pretty anxious at times, but my favorite group of people to speak to is elementary students. And people say, why do you want to speak to elementary students? Because they're unpredictable. It's hard to get their attention, right? And I love them because number one, they treat you so well if you can say something that they care about. And number two, just the questions that you get are constantly keeping me on my toes. And I say that's what keeps me tuned up. Like, I am constantly getting attuned because a kindergartner will ask you some really, really interesting questions.
Yeah.
I had a presentation actually, and there was a picture of my dog and Murray. He was wearing a Santa suit, but I guess he must have looked sad. And I said, can anybody think of a plot for this story? We were talking about plots and storytelling. They said, Murray has depression and he needs to wear a Santa suit. I was like, how do I say that?
Ho, ho, oh. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you're right. Kids, what is it? Drunks and children, they're the ones that will tell the truth, and they will. They'll ask the most direct answers ever. But you're right. The engagement level, and especially with what you're presenting. Storytelling, what an amazing art form that is.
It is, and you're in the same art form as me.
Right. I can make whatever face I want and wear whatever I want when I do it because nobody sees me. Most of the time. Today they see me, of course, here on
That's
Facebook.
what I like about radio. So my quick caveat into radio was I did color commentary for basketball, college Division I, Division II basketball. And I really enjoyed it because I didn't feel the pressure. Because I also did sideline where I had a lot more pressure. And the way that not having to think about how you look when you're talking is another great thing. So I always tell my clients if they want to kind of loosen up their presence, I say, look, take out your cell phone, click record, but on a voice memo only. Don't look at yourself. I said, and I want to see, can you convey emotion through only your voice? Because that is the hardest when you only have your voice as your medium.
Mm-hmm.
And radio taught me a lot of that, even though I didn't do very much with it.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. They call it color commentary, right? When you're the sideline reporter or you're the number two in the booth, this guy's doing the play-by-play and you're over here and you're Chip and you're like, that sounds good to me, Eric, but it's color because that's what you're adding. Your inflection, your tone, your voicings, all that kind of stuff brings life to that verbal conversation. And that's really at the baseline what storytelling is.
1,000,000%.
And it's an art form as old as it was. That was history before we could write it down. Then it was still history, and it still is today, right? Reciting the recipes that Grandma told you, or the stories that Grandpa told you about growing up, or those kind of things. That's our verbal history. And whether it's fiction and you're doing audiobooks, or whether you're giving a presentation on how to be a better storyteller, that makes such a big difference.
Yes, I don't think we're going to be doing recipes, though. So I have a lot of skills, but cooking's not one of them. I sure can bake, though.
Well, see, that leaves you something then. That's another goal to look for down the road. Is at some point when I have more than 5 minutes of free time a day, I'm going to learn how to cook a little more. So there you go.
I try. It's hard. I can't eat anything. I'm gluten-free.
Yeah, yeah. It is, and you got to, there's a lot to keep an eye out for as you get into that, so... But, so you've got an expertise in communication, and that has, you had that tenure there with Fox Sports to do the live sideline coverage. But this has kind of given you the skills to be able to communicate, on a variety of topics. One of which is about your book. And this is one of the things that, I've seen pictures where you've gone to the classrooms, met with the kids, and tell them about it. So before we get into talking about the storytelling side of the book, let's give a little premise and a little preview as to what the book's about.
Sure. So I'm actually going to do a second book, which was a recent last week decision, really. So I'll announce it here. And I'm very excited about that. But my first book, which is Murray's Miraculous Mission, is really about my real life stories. So I started training therapy dogs, a very unconventional hobby. When I was pretty young. I was about, say, 9.
Yeah. So how did you get into it? Was he just your dog and this would be a good place for him, or?
Sure. So my first dog that I did it with was a female. Her name was Molly, and she was a golden retriever. If you've had one, you know that you can get very lucky with their temperament. And my grandparents, so I live on a property where all of my family live next to me. So my grandparents live next door. They kind of called me up and they said, we saw this ad in the paper about our county, because we're very rural, needing more therapy dogs. And I was like, oh. So I went to the informational meeting with my grandpa. I was like 9. And I walked out and was like, this is what I want to do. I never want to not do this. So we spent some time training. She was about 3. So we only took 3-4 months. We got her ready. And then she started visiting nursing homes. Well, that for me was really where I started to build some of those communication skills, because I'm a 9-year-old walking
Right.
into a 90-year-old's room. And what is the common thread there? What can you talk about? And I got really good at connecting on more of the emotional level, even though maybe we didn't seem like we had a lot in common. So I took all those stories, the fun ones, all of the cute ones, and I put them into a book with the underlying theme of, helping others is worthwhile and volunteering is worthwhile. And the pictures are just adorable. I was able to have a Disney illustrator do them, so they're super
That's
duper
awesome.
cute. And the kids really have taken to the topic, and they've actually started training dogs. So I'm pretty proud.
Yeah, that's a cool legacy to come out of, what again brought you into being a better communicator and a better speaker and so forth. And that's a position to be in that a lot of us struggle with, especially as really, and I think it's from, I'm 48. My grandparents, my grandpa was Depression era, right? But my dad was out of high school before Vietnam. And then, I'm a guy who was born without the tech, but loved the tech, grew into the tech, and have evolved into it. So, sometimes for my kids to communicate with grandparents, that's a difficult conversation, even as a family, and to go into a strange person's room who's 70, 80 years your senior, to bridge that communication, that had to have been wildly intimidating.
Yeah, it was. I've always been friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after I did it, the dog serves as a really nice icebreaker. And that's what I tell kids. Even if you're too scared to talk to someone, you can make a card or XYZ. So that was my Miss Ohio platform as well.
Right.
People thought I was crazy to do like a multi-generational platform, but it ended up working super well, and just talking about the type of programs that young people and older people can do, or, 20-year-olds and 40-year-olds.
Yeah, to bridge that generational gap.
There's such a wealth of knowledge that comes from interacting with every different type of person.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, again, going back to storytelling, I'm sure that you walked away from there with some stories. And again, your stories that you created in that time allowed you to create that book. And you published the book when?
Some years ago, like 3 or 4.
It was like, yeah, it was pre-COVID, right? So
yes, it was pre-COVID, which
right.
was part of the challenge. Is when my book got done, I had always wanted to go to schools. And I waited around, which I guess I shouldn't have done. And then COVID hit, and I had 2 years where I couldn't. But
right.
I'm finally out there going now and having a really good time.
Yeah, it is. And it's a fun book. I mean, for those of you watching, you can get a copy of the book very easily. You can find it on Amazon. You can search it online. Just give it a quick Google, and you're going to find Murray's Miraculous Mission without any major effort, which is awesome, and get a copy. And is it available digital copy as well?
I'm working on doing that. So
okay.
I'm working on reformatting. I had some Amazon issues, my friends. So most of the people buy through me these days.
I got you.
I'm working on it, but I'm not a tech genius like you.
No, that's quite all right. For those who want to reach out or learn more, do you have a essential site or anything like that you'd send them to?
I'm working on that too,
okay,
but I do
cool.
have my Facebook.
No, we'll save that for chapter 2 when we'll save
that for chapter 2.
We'll talk about the new book and dig in on that stuff. So, and for people who are watching and they're like, this is our Forrest Gump conversation, because you and I have both played a lot of fun roles over our lives so far. And so Miss Ohio, you're talking about that multi-generational platform and how that wasn't a very popular idea. Do you think that's because it's typically something that is more difficult to bridge? Programs typically consist of like, well, we're having bingo and we're inviting kids to come too, kind of a thing. So, what do you see as far as that bridging? What kind of tools like the therapy dogs are out there for people today?
I'm really into recently heart-centered communication. It's something that I'm very excited about. I'll be talking at Toastmasters annual conference about, so I'm very excited. Nice. And heart-centered communication is stripping back the layers in my eyes. Now, number one, I always think about safety when we're talking, putting different generations together. But then number two, how do we strip it back and not be judgmental? Of the younger people are very into their TikTok and the older people are so not. And that's a big, big gap to bridge. How do we peel it back and say, you're a human, I'm a human. There are things that we can connect on. And even if we don't see eye to eye, how can we communicate from our hearts with each other? And that's something that I always strive to tell kids is you don't necessarily have to agree with your grandparents on everything
Right.
and vice versa.
That's how
But
we
you can,
evolve as a species, is we have arguments, that's part of
yeah,
it.
and you can still kind of weave that thread of commonality. So maybe you
Mhm.
both, love to laugh and you
Yeah.
can share stories, whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me anyway, and you may experience this too, it's kind of a Midwest thing, but a lot of us look to a natural connection to
Mhm.
bridge that, whether it's going fishing with grandpa, or for us, my family raises beef cattle. It's my daughter helping her grandpa at the farm. Those kind of things for us, that's a commonality. And maybe you're doing something very basic and mundane, that's you're on a fishing trip together, but that evokes conversations away from distractions on technology and those kind of things too. So kind of have a more honest, like you said, a heart to heart kind of
Mhm.
communication. Um,
Yeah, we're so Midwestern. Look
yeah.
at us.
Ope. I should have worn my Ope hat today. That'd been perfect.
See, that's not one that I do. But I do like the yeah nah. If you heard of the Midwestern, like yeah nah, I
No.
do that.
Yeah, nah. Oh yeah.
No.
No, that's terrible. But yeah, these meaningful, interactions between generations, it is an important thing. And I think it's because our history is a thread and we're constantly weaving new things into it. And it just, I love storytelling. We had a storytelling event at our fall festival here locally last fall, and I got to be lucky enough to be one of the storytellers to tell ghost stories. I got bonus points because a friend of mine wrote the book that we were telling stories from. So I was like, oh, I know this one. I've read the book. But it's a lot of fun. And you on the front side of being a public speaker, there's really nothing like delivering something that you're passionate about. And whatever your passion might be, if you're into, you're passionate about helping, the handicapped have access to mobility. Okay. You're passionate about that. You speak to people about that. If you deliver well and you're confident about what you're speaking, man, you'll captivate people. And it could be somebody who has absolutely no interest in it, and they're still going to listen and pay attention and take away from it because of the passion that you have for it. So to me, the best stories come from the heart.
I always say, I teach people I don't know if you know this, Darren. So I do teach people how to speak, and we get our stories, and we get them booked, like with you. But there's a lot of things I can teach someone. I can teach you how to not say I
Mm,
can teach you how to articulate better. I cannot teach you to be excited about your own topic.
right.
I always say if you are excited about what you are saying, other people will be excited because they feel your energy. They feel just the joy you have talking about that, even if it's a sad topic. And that's what I say. You can talk about something that's very, very sad. I mean, you can talk about having a difficult time in your childhood and still be excited to share it because you know it's going to help somebody.
Mhm.
So tying it back to that purpose and tying it back to that excitement makes a huge difference in your delivery. And you would know that so well.
Yeah. Being genuine. Don't ask me to come and talk about taxes or to deliver a political message that is not Darren's platform, and you will not get passion out of me. But what would Brooke's top 5 tips for being a better public speaker? What would you hand out for free advice today?
Number one, give yourself permission. I see a lot of people don't give themselves permission to screw up, give themselves permission to talk about what they really want to talk about.
Mhm.
For me, people weren't so sure about what I wanted to talk about at first. And I had to give myself permission to be still excited and on board with that. Number two, slow down. This is not a marathon. This is not a race. Number three, when you are pitching yourselves to event organizers or when you're telling yourselves, I am a public speaker, I always tell people don't say, I do public speaking. Say, I am a public speaker
Mhm.
because you want to claim that that is what you are. There is a different
Yeah.
energy and there is a different ownership that comes from saying, I am this, I am that. Fun fact, far before I was a public speaker, I claimed that I was. Far before I even had my business that Darren knows about, I claimed that I did. And I said, I am this, I am that. People respond when we take ownership. So
Yeah.
that's a big one about getting events. Number four, when you're up there and you're looking at the crowd, somebody once told me I was doing a kind of like singing audition. It wasn't public speaking. I said, I get so nervous. And he said, you do know that the crowd wants you to do well, right? And he broke it down like when you're singing, when you're speaking, the audience does not want to hear a bad speaker. They want to hear a good one. That's why they're there. And so internally, people are rooting for you, even though those eyes can feel super unsettling.
Right.
Then number 5, have a really, really good pre-speaking routine. If you want to listen to Lizzo, listen to Lizzo. If you want to stretch, stretch. If you want to eat 5 Hershey Kisses, do whatever makes you feel grounded. Do whatever makes you feel more like you. For me, my music changes a lot, but I'll always kind of shake out my body and definitely warm up my voice so that it's not feeling stagnant, because singer time. But
yeah, right.
So those are my 5. I would have a couple more, but I think the main one I really want to stress to people is give yourself permission to want to be a public speaker, and then start saying that you are. You don't have to be perfect at first. People don't expect that from you.
Right. Well, practice makes perfect. You got to crawl before you walk. Insert cliche here, right? But yeah, everybody starts somewhere. And a lot of us start, maybe the written word is where we started with expressing ourselves, and then we were able to catalyst that into, vocally speaking out. So, and the cool thing about the internet is, here we are on Facebook Live. You're watching on Facebook Live, or you're listening via the podcast. There are plenty of venues for you to be able to express yourself, talk about what you're passionate about. People like me, start your own podcast, do your own thing. But you're right. Level 1 is giving yourself permission and taking ownership, accountability, and genuinely diving in.
Yeah. Some of my clients get nervous to talk about the things that they want to talk about. They feel like they're dorky, or, that no one else is going to care. You can find people that care about almost anything. And I swear that you can find like-minded people.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how niche what you want to discuss is. I don't care if you want to discuss ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
You can find people that want to listen.
Yeah. There is a Peruvian flute music disco cover band group on Facebook somewhere right now with members waiting to hear from you. So
exactly.
if you love it, it's out there. There's 8 billion people on this planet. You've got plenty of like-minded individuals just waiting. So it's all.
That's what I say about clients, because I'm really fortunate. I have pretty good clients. Yeah. I consider them great. And I'll say there's 8 billion people on this earth. I don't need very many of them to like me. I don't need many at all. I only need a small group of people that like me in this world, and I don't care if the rest of the people don't. And that is really how I feel. And it's worked well.
Yep. It's good to have those like-minded people who validate, what you're passionate about and what you believe. And again, yeah, the world's full of diversity. Not everybody's going to be on the same page, but it's great to have people that are.
Yeah.
Brooke,
so you asked me your next question.
Yeah. So, let me double check my time here. Okay. I think we got about 5-6 minutes here before Zoom will kick us off. As far as, I know we're working on contact for the book. Let's talk real quick, briefly about this next book. What's in the works?
Sure. So I've had the books sitting around my home, and I took a look at it and I said, this is good. I don't want to let it go to waste. So it's kind of a sequel. Unfortunately, these stories are not true. They are fictional stories with the same message. But Murray, which is the title character in the first book, is going to go to a children's hospital and have some really touching and really fun interactions. So I can't wait for that. I have illustrations that start on April 3rd, and I was like, we got to make it so cute. It's going to be colorful. It's going to be fun. So I'm excited to see how it rolls out. It gives me something to focus on rather than, well, you know this, Darren, when you work in your business and you do the same thing every day, or you work in your job, to have a passion project can kind of ignite you and light you up again. And that's how I feel about the books. People say, it's a common misconception that you get rich off children's books. I'm like, absolutely not. I definitely don't. But they give me a sense of purpose.
But how rich does your soul feel, from that? Gosh.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I get stressed in my business, I'll slide over to my passion project.
Life work balance. And if you've got a passion like that in your life, it's a great way to keep things balanced.
1,000,000%. Well, I have 2 businesses, so somebody's always got a problem.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. We're never without fires, but that's what keeps us warm. So
exactly.
That's how we keep it going. Well, Brooke, it has been an absolute pleasure having you. And I know that we'll be in touch for many more good things down the road, and we'll definitely have you back and chat some more about this next book as it's coming to light. And I know you're going to send me some more guests too, that we're going to be having on here for Humans in Tune. So Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. It's about time.
Thank you. Well, here's the thing. I never leave you alone for very long. Sometimes I think you get rid of me and then I just come right back.
No.
I'm like lice. I just keep coming back to your head. We have plenty of hair.
Brooke's my good penny. You just keep turning up and stick around. So that's awesome.
He doesn't have any hair, so I can't be lice unless I'm in his beard.
That's right. Yeah. Crawl on in. It's a squirrel's nest in here. All right.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, today's guest has been Brooke Young. Brooke, thanks again for being here for a Humans in Tune segment with me today. We will have another one coming very soon. Of course, keep your eyes at 939 Mike FM on Facebook and at 939mikefm.com to know when the next one's coming up, and listen on air for me to promote it as well. And if you missed any of the episodes, you can always go back and watch them again on that videos tab on our Facebook page, or you can catch the podcast at 939mikefm.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, and etc. Tune in for the next Humans in Tune. For Brooke, I'm Darren. Have a great afternoon. Be a nice human. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for catching this Humans in Tune conversation with 93.9 Mike FM. Find previous interviews on our Facebook page, or you can listen via our podcast at 939mikefm.com.